No one remembered the name of the first planet they destroyed. That was the problem with the Varneks. They didn't just conquer, they erased. Entire star systems were turned to dust, their histories burned, cultures vaporized. The galaxy trembled every time one of their dark crescent ships bled through the stars. They didn't negotiate. They didn't even speak. They came, they saw, and they consumed. And yet, when they reached Sector 9, the outer fringe of the Milky Way, they encountered something different. The Varneks believed Earth was unimportant, backwater, primitive, the kind of species that still bled, still cried, still buried their dead. They scanned our communications, watched our wars, judged our infighting, and dismissed us, a mistake they would only make once. When the alarms rang across the interstellar defense grid, Earth barely had hours to respond. The first wave hit Titan Base hard. The colony fell silent within minutes. A transmission came through, garbled and panicked. "They're not taking prisoners." Then static. The silence was heavier than death. But Earth had been preparing. Quietly, patiently. The United Earth Confederation had learned from centuries of fighting itself. While the Varneks had moved from victory to victory, humans had moved from survival to supremacy in the one thing they did best: adapting. At the edge of Neptune's orbit, deep in the shadow of the void, a ship slept. She was called Oblivion's Edge. A legend wrapped in rumor, her existence denied by every government, buried beneath classified code and ghost files. She wasn't a fleet. She wasn't a battalion. She was one warship. But not just any warship. Humanity poured everything into her. Stolen alien tech, experimental weapons, a quantum AI that thought like a soldier and dreamed like a human. Her hull was blacker than space, eating light like a predator. Her engine could fold time. Her guns could unmake matter. And her captain, well, they said Captain Adrian Vox had died twice and still chose to come back, just to finish the fight. The order came straight from High Command: activate Oblivion's Edge. And for the first time in 10 years, she awoke. Systems flared, cannons aligned. The ship's voice, smooth and cold like ice over steel, whispered, "Ready to engage." Adrian stood at the helm, scarred and silent, eyes like old war, tired but still burning. He looked at the tactical map. Red dots, Varneks ships were moving toward Mars, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. He didn't flinch. "Plot a course. We're going hunting." His crew was a patchwork of the best and the broken. A pilot who once crashed into a sun and lived. A weapons officer who lost her family to the Varneks and rebuilt the plasma cannon with her bare hands. A medic who could stitch a man back together while dodging bullets. They weren't just soldiers. They were survivors. Angry ones. As Oblivion's Edge punched through hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. No one had ever fought the Varneks alone. No one had dared. But humanity wasn't just anyone. Within 20 minutes of arrival, the ship came face to face with the first Varneks destroyer. It was enormous, twice the size of any Earth vessel, shaped like a black blade, its surface crawling with bioluminescent scars. The Varneks had never known fear. Until that moment. Oblivion's Edge didn't wait for a warning shot. She opened fire. Plasma scorched through the enemy hull. One shot, one kill. The Varnek ship didn't even have time to respond. Pieces of it floated in silence, the void swallowing their surprise. Then came another. And another. Adrian didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just whispered, "Next." The galaxy had a new rumor now. Whispers spread between systems, through smugglers, rebels, and hidden colonies. A human ship that hunted the hunters, a ghost warship that came from nowhere and left destruction in its wake. The Varneks began to regroup. They weren't used to retreating, but they were smart. The next time, they sent 10, then 20. They tried to overwhelm. They failed. Because Oblivion's Edge wasn't just a ship. She was vengeance. She was war. And she was just getting started. The wreckage of the Varnex destroyers drifted in the cold silence of space, glowing faintly like dying embers from a forgotten fire. Adrian stood at the viewport of the bridge, watching it all. His face, hard as carved stone, showed no victory, only focus. The crew behind him moved quickly, no one celebrating, no one daring to speak unless necessary. They all knew the same truth. This wasn't over, not even close. The Oblivion's Edge had taken out the first wave, but the real swarm hadn't come yet. The Varnex didn't accept resistance lightly. They would come back with everything. That was their way. Erase the threat. Burn the memory. Silence the survivors. AI status? Adrian asked. Minimal hull damage. Weapon systems at 93%. Reactor stable. 3 Varnex beacon drones destroyed, but 1 escaped. Adrian turned toward her. Then we make it count. There was no time to retreat, and Adrian didn't believe in running. He ordered the ship toward the dead wreckage field, using the broken Varnex hulls as cover. The Edge glided like a shadow among bones, silent and calculating. The plan was simple. Ambush. Ray rigged the remains of the Varnex ships with fusion charges, remote-linked to their fire control. The idea was brutal and effective. Turn the enemy's dead into their own trap. It was the kind of tactic the Confederation wouldn't approve of, but Adrian hadn't followed orders in years. They didn't have long to wait. The void shimmered as the Varnex fleet emerged. 20 ships, all larger than the last ones, shaped like living nightmares, jagged black steel and glowing red veins pulsing with strange energy. They moved in perfect sync, as if one mind controlled them all. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Time to teach them fear. The Varnex ships spread out, scanning. The beacon drone led them right into the field of debris. It was working. The trap was working. Then one of the enemy ships slowed. Its hull peeled open, revealing rows of teeth-like spikes along a pulsing cannon bay. A second later, it unleashed a wave of crimson energy. They're trying to clear the field, Ray snapped. They're not dumb. Not dumb enough, Adrian said calmly. Now. The charges ignited. A chain of explosions lit up the dark, tearing through the debris and taking 5 of the Varnex ships with them. The shockwave blinded their sensors. The Oblivion's Edge cut through the confusion like a knife. Every gun lit up. Each shot aimed with surgical precision. They didn't fight like soldiers, they fought like predators. But the Varnex learned fast. 2 of them broke formation, flanking the Edge with terrifying speed. One launched a net of ion plasma, aiming to shut down the ship's engines. The other fired a bolt that cracked space like lightning. Shields dropping fast, shouted Rowe, the pilot, gripping the controls tight. We need to move, Adrian gritted his teeth. Punch gravity drive, get us above them. The ship groaned as the drive kicked in, folding space for a split second. The Edge blinked out of position and reappeared high above the enemy formation. From that angle, they unleashed hell. Ray fired the core buster, a weapon only tested once, and never twice. The energy beam drilled straight through one of the Varnex ships, its core imploding in a blaze of blue fire. Another kill. 2 more followed. But the Varnex struck back. A direct hit slammed into their starboard side, knocking out the outer cannon array and throwing crew to the floor. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Adrian stood, blood on his lip but eyes still sharp. We hold this line, he growled. If we fall here, Earth burns next. Outside, the stars were painted red. Inside, vengeance still burned. The battle wasn't just for survival anymore. It was a message. Humanity didn't kneel, not today. Not ever. The lights on the bridge flickered, but the crew of Oblivion's Edge stayed on their feet. Smoke coiled through the air like a ghost. The Varnex had hit them harder than expected, and for the first time since launching, the warship groaned under the weight of battle. But it didn't break. Not yet. Adrian wiped the blood from his mouth and stared at the damage report scrolling across the cracked screen in front of him. Outer cannon array. Gone. Gravity stabilizers. Offline in 2 sections. 2 crew injured. 1 dead. He didn't say anything. Not yet. Grief was a luxury for after the war. "Ray," he said hoarsely, "what's left of the arsenal?" "Still got the quantum torpedoes," she replied, her voice tight. "But only 3. Particle lance is still charging. Secondary railguns are good. Barely." Adrian nodded. "That'll do." Outside the viewport, 3 Varnex ships remained, each one burning, scarred, but still moving with that eerie precision. They hadn't retreated. They never did. And Adrian could see it clearly now. They were adapting, learning, faster than expected. The longer this dragged on, the worse their odds got. "We can't outlast them," Rowe muttered at the helm, sweat glistening on his brow. "They'll bleed us out piece by piece." Adrian looked down at the screen. A small red dot blinked in the far corner of the sector. Barely visible. An asteroid field. Perfect. "We're not outlasting them," Adrian said. "We're drawing them in." He keyed in the nav coordinates and pointed to the map. "That's our next move. We lose them in the rocks. Pick them off from inside." "You sure that'll work?" Ray asked. "No," he replied flatly. "But staying here gets us killed for certain." Oblivion's Edge turned, engines straining, smoke venting from her ruptured side. Behind her, the remaining Varnex ships adjusted course and followed, unrelenting as ever. The asteroid field was jagged and chaotic, full of spinning rock and dust, a graveyard of forgotten minerals and shattered moons. Rowe had to manually steer. Autonav refused to function in the field. The ship scraped against a drifting chunk of iron, hull shrieking in protest, but inside, the silence returned. The calm before another storm. Adrian leaned close to Ray. "I want mines laced through the outer belt. Only detonate if they come through tight. Time the blast radius so we force them inward." "Like herding animals," she said with a faint smile. "I like it." "I'm not done," Adrian added. "Once we get them in deep, I want full blackout. No power, cold ship, let them think we're dead." "And then?" "We wake up and cut their throats." The Varnex followed. Predictably. The field was too thick for full movement, so they split. 1 hung back. 2 entered. Just as planned. Ray triggered the mines. The explosion lit up the entire left quadrant of the field, a wave of fire and debris slamming into one of the Varnex ships. Its shields flared once, twice, and failed. The blast crushed it like paper, scattering its remains into the void. The second ship spun deeper in, scanning wildly, searching. Too late to realize what they'd walked into. Inside Oblivion's Edge, the lights dimmed to nothing. Power dropped to minimal. Even the core reactor cooled just above freezing. It felt like death. Cold and quiet. Adrian stood in the dark, whispering to his crew. "No talking, no movement, let them come." Minutes passed. The second Varnex ship entered the kill zone. Then the AI spoke quietly into Adrian's earpiece. "Target locked," Adrian whispered one word. "Execute." The particle lance roared to life. A beam of brilliant energy tore out of the ship, piercing the asteroid field and slicing through the second enemy like a sword through silk. There was no explosion, just disintegration. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. Silence followed. Adrian let it linger, then the third ship began to back away. They're retreating, Ray whispered, stunned. They never retreat. They've learned, Adrian said, eyes narrowing. They've finally learned to be afraid. He turned to his crew, his voice firm. But fear doesn't mean they'll stop. They'll go back, regroup, and next time, they'll bring more. The bridge fell quiet again. Everyone knew what he meant. This war wasn't won. Not even close. But for the first time in galactic history, the Varneks were bleeding, and humanity was still standing. The message came 12 hours later. A distorted signal, piggybacking on a frequency that hadn't been used since the start of Earth's exoplanet colonization era. Static buzzed, then a voice. Raspy, broken, but unmistakably human. This is Captain Lace of the freighter Halion Dawn. If anyone's out there, Varnek's forces have reached E-class sectors. They've burned through Nara Prime. Billions dead. No warning. No survivors. They're headed for Sol. Repeat, they're coming for Earth. Then silence. No coordinates. No context. Just that voice and the raw panic behind it. The bridge of Oblivion's edge fell into a heavy hush. Adrian stared at the flickering comm screen, jaw clenched. He didn't blink, didn't move. Ro was the first to speak. Nara Prime, that's 6 jumps from Earth. They're closing in. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Ray said. This isn't a war, it's a purge. Adrian turned slowly. Then we make it cost them. He ordered the ship to the edge of the asteroid field, using the remaining power to refuel and stabilize. Repair drones buzzed across the hull, patching scorch marks, sealing breaches. The crew was tired, eyes sunken, hands trembling. But no one asked to stop. They didn't have to. Everyone knew what was coming. Varnek's reinforcements. And this time they weren't sending scouts. Satellite intel from Earth's deep space scanners confirmed it. A carrier swarm. 48 confirmed Varneks vessels headed for Sector 7, straight through the path of Oblivion's edge. Adrian studied the fleet formation on the screen, breathing slow and deep. We can't stop them all, Ro said quietly. No, Adrian replied, but we're not trying to. He pointed to the lead ship in the Varneks formation, a massive beast of a vessel, easily 5 times larger than anything they'd faced. That's their flagship, the command link. Every one of their ships moves like a limb off that core. Cut off the head, Ray began, and the body dies, Adrian finished. The plan was suicidal. 1 warship versus an entire fleet. But Adrian had never cared about odds. Oblivion's edge wasn't built to win wars the traditional way. It was built for disruption, shock, terror. It was built for this. They charged the drive, routed all power to the cloaking grid. Still experimental, still buggy. The ship shimmered, then disappeared from all sensors. Even to the Varneks, they were nothing but background noise. The crew said nothing as they jumped into hyperspace. Everyone strapped in, everyone ready to die or kill. Oblivion's edge exited just outside the Varneks swarm, drifting like a dead thing. They moved silently beneath the enemy radar, slipping under the outer layer of smaller destroyers. The fleet was so massive, so confident, that it didn't even check for threats. That was their mistake. They got within 5,000 kilometers of the command ship before anyone noticed. By then, it was already too late. Adrian stood at the helm, voice low and steady. All torpedoes locked? Every last one, Ray confirmed. Core busters hot. Particle lance ready. Then give them hell. The first volley hit before the Varneks even activated shields. 3 torpedoes, aimed at the power junctions on the underside of the command vessel. The explosion rolled across its hull like fire on water. Lights blinked out. Systems failed. The massive ship staggered, wounded. Then the edge unleashed the particle lance, slicing through the ship's neck, right through its command spine. The swarm hesitated. Their formations faltered. The limb had lost its brain. Ray was laughing now, not out of joy, but pure adrenaline. "It's working! They're panicking!" "No, they're adapting," Adrian said sharply. "Brace for counterstrike." The swarm convulsed. 20 ships broke off, turning toward Oblivion's edge in a wave of hate. The flagship behind them began to collapse, pieces peeling off like burning leaves, dragging smaller vessels into its gravity well. The Varnex had never needed backup plans before. But now, they were learning fast. "Multiple incoming," Rowe shouted. "We're surrounded," Adrian gritted his teeth. "Then we die loud." The warship spun and dove, moving between enemy blasts like a ghost on fire. Every cannon on board lit up. Space became a battlefield of screams and light. The crew fought like demons, every trigger pull a last stand, every maneuver one breath closer to death. But they kept going, because there was no other option. The space around Oblivion's edge was burning. Blasts of searing light tore through the black, cutting paths of fire across the battlefield. The ship spun and ducked, engines howling as Rowe pushed the controls beyond their limits. Shields flickered like dying stars. Warnings screamed from the consoles. Hull integrity dropping. Power reserves draining. It didn't matter. They were in the middle of hell now, and the only way out was through it. Adrian stood behind Rowe, bracing himself against the shaking bridge. "Don't let them box us in! Brake right, hard!" Rowe jerked the ship into a roll just as 2 Varnex cruisers fired, their plasma shots slicing through the space they'd just occupied. The aftershock still rocked the hull, but they stayed alive. Barely. "Shields at 19%, shouted Ray. "Core buster offline, reactors running hot." Adrian's voice was calm. "Redirect secondary power to aft cannons. Keep the forward railguns hot. If they want to close in, we'll meet them with fire." The ship shuddered as another blast hit, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Smoke filled the air. The lights flickered again. From the viewport, Adrian could see the Varnex swarm unraveling. They'd lost command cohesion. Ships were still trying to form battle lines, but without the flagship's signal, they were slower, sloppier. It was chaos. But chaos was where humans thrived. "Target that heavy cruiser to port," Adrian ordered. "Hit the cooling vents." Ray adjusted the aim. "Locked. Fire." The railgun slammed 2 kinetic rounds into the enemy ship's flank. The first cracked the armor. The second tore through the cooling grid, triggering a chain reaction. Fire bled out through the cruiser's underbelly as it lurched, spiraling into one of its own escorts. Both ships vanished in a single explosion. A cheer rose on the bridge. Brief, breathless. But Adrian didn't celebrate. He knew what was coming. And then it came. A new signature entered the system. Massive, heavier than the flagship. Darker, like a piece of the void itself. The crew stared at the readings. "What the hell is that?" Rowe whispered. Ray's face turned pale. "It's not on any registry. I don't think it's even built. It looks grown." On the screen, the new vessel pulsed with sickly red veins, its surface shifting like skin. It didn't move. It drifted, slow and inevitable, like death incarnate. A biological warship. The Varnex had just escalated. "AI, analysis," Adrian demanded. "Unknown class. Estimated energy output exceeds any prior Varnex record. Weapon systems presumed organic. Threat level, catastrophic." The crew stared in silence. Then the enemy ship opened its maw. An actual opening, like a mouth tearing through its front hull. From within, a glow began to build. Bright, violent. Adrian knew what it was. "EMP burst, big one." "Brace," Ray shouted. "All systems, shut down now." They barely made it. Power dropped. Lights died. The edge went cold as the enemy fired. A ripple of red light swept across space, silent and brutal. Everything it touched shut down. Drones, missiles, dead ships. The wave passed over Oblivion's edge, rattling her to the core. Systems sparked, screens shattered, but they'd gone dark just in time to avoid a full shutdown. Still, half the ship was fried. Comms gone. Long-range targeting, scrambled. Artificial gravity, offline. It felt like they were floating in a dying coffin. Adrian staggered up, blood dripping from a gash above his eye. Status? Dead, Ray said through clenched teeth. Half our systems. We've got maybe 2 guns still functional. No shields. They'll be coming, Rose said, checking manual scopes. All of them. Adrian breathed in the smoke, in the silence, and made a decision. We finish it. Here, now. Sir, no more running. No more traps. We punch through that thing's core or we die trying. The crew exchanged glances. Tired, wounded, half-broken. But no one argued. Not one. Ray limped over to her console and slammed in the last override. Manual targeting only. I'll guide the last railgun by eye. Bring us in, Adrian said. Ro clenched his teeth. Yes, sir. The ship turned toward the beast. One human warship, smoking and ruined, flying straight into the mouth of a monster. No more tricks, no more traps, only war. They flew into the shadow of the monster. The Varnex bioship loomed ahead, its surface pulsing like muscle under a dying sun. It didn't move like a machine. It breathed. Its hull rippled with veins of red and black, exhaling toxic gases into space like blood into water. Oblivion's edge, broken and scorched, was a whisper of steel against the scream of that thing's presence. But she moved forward anyway, slow and steady. One last bullet in a war humanity hadn't asked for. Ro piloted by feel. Instruments were dead, targeting gone. He maneuvered through instinct and pain, dodging debris, weaving past the wrecks of Varnex vessels they'd already destroyed. The AI was offline, its core fried by the EMP. There was no voice guiding them now, just the living crew and the dying ship. Range? Adrian asked. Ray pressed her forehead against the cracked viewport, watching the enemy's energy build like a rising storm. 300 kilometers, maybe less. It's charging again. The bioship's maw widened, and something deep inside it began to glow. A swirling mass of unstable energy, like a star being born and torn apart all at once. Adrian recognized it for what it was, not a weapon, a final purge. The Varnex meant to annihilate everything in this quadrant, themselves included if it meant taking Oblivion's edge with them. Suicide protocol, Adrian muttered. They want to end us no matter the cost. Sounds familiar, Ray whispered. The bridge went quiet. Then Adrian stepped forward, one hand gripping the side of Ray's console. Time to return the favor. They had one weapon left, the last railgun. Not guided by sensors, not connected to any AI, just pure human calculation, reflex, and rage. Ray had to aim it manually through the visual port, like ancient warships from Earth's earliest naval battles. But this wasn't the ocean. It was the edge of the void. Ro pushed the ship forward, sweat dripping into his eyes. Alarms flashed warnings with no sound. Everything else was dead. The ship groaned under the pressure, and the Varnex creature grew brighter, its maw opening wider. In seconds, it would fire, and then it would be over. Hold her steady, Ray whispered, hands trembling over the targeting dial. Just a little more. The railgun's core hummed with unstable energy, barely holding together. One shot. That's all they had. 100 kilometers, she breathed. Adrian stared at the heart of the creature through the viewport. Behind him, the bridge lights flickered, some ghost of power still twitching in the wires. 80. 50. Now! Ray fired, The shot roared like a thunderclap, the railgun launching its final round with a scream of tortured metal. The slug shot forward, a blur of fire and steel, carving through the dark. It hit the Varnek's bioship just as its energy core reached critical mass. For one moment, everything froze. Then the core ruptured. The explosion didn't sound. It shook the stars. Light poured from the creature in waves, burning through the black like the death of a god. The shockwave slammed into Oblivion's edge, flipping her end over end, tearing away her last shield plates and cracking the port wing. The crew was thrown from their stations, smoke billowing through the vents, the hull screaming in protest. But the ship held. When the light faded, the bioship was gone. Nothing left, no parts, no debris, just silence. Adrian pulled himself to his feet, coughing through the smoke. Ray was still conscious, eyes wide. Ro groaned but gave a shaky thumbs up from the pilot's seat. The crew had survived. Barely. And then, the quiet was broken. A new signal blinked on the console. Low frequency. Weak. It was human. Adrian tapped the comms manually, patching through. A voice came through, sharp, clear, and terrified. "This is the Starling's End. We're a civilian escape convoy from Nara Prime. We thought we were the only ones left. Are you the warship that killed the Varnek's fleet?" Adrian didn't smile. He didn't speak for a long second. Then finally he answered, his voice calm and cold as iron. "Number, we're the warning." He cut the channel and looked out at the stars. The Varneks were still out there. Others would come, maybe stronger, maybe smarter. But now they knew what waited for them. Not a fleet, not an empire, just one human warship, and it was enough to make them bleed. The aftermath drifted in silence. Across the stars, the shattered remnants of the Varnek's fleet still floated like a ruined mosaic, twisted metal, black shards of bioflesh, dead things that once screamed across galaxies. And in the center of it all, battered and scorched but still intact, Oblivion's edge hovered in the void like a legend made real. Word traveled fast, not through governments, not through military channels, but through whispers, pirate relays, refugee frequencies, hidden colonies. Wherever people feared the Varneks, they now spoke of a ship with no flag, a war machine that fought alone, a vessel that hunted nightmares, and the fear that once belonged solely to the Varneks shifted. Back on Earth, High Command was in chaos. Adrian's actions had violated 10 treaties, 7 interstellar laws, and every piece of protocol in the book. But it didn't matter. He'd done what none of their fleets could. He'd broken the Varnek's line. The message came 2 days after the explosion. A secure transmission from General Mara Voss herself, head of the United Earth Confederation Defense Council. Adrian opened it on the shattered bridge, surrounded by wounded crew and blinking half-dead systems. Her face appeared, tired, stone-faced, and unreadable. "Captain Vox," she said, "you've started something we can't contain." Adrian didn't respond. He waited. "You disobeyed orders, engaged an unknown biothreat without clearance, risked the only advanced warship Earth had left, and now every colony thinks we've won." "We didn't win," Adrian said finally. "We survived." Mara sighed. "You think I don't know that? The Varneks aren't gone. That thing you killed, it wasn't their god. It was a scout." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Then let them send more." She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I'm reactivating your command, not as punishment, as a message. The galaxy's changing, Adrian. We don't have time for diplomacy anymore." She paused, then said it. "You're our blade now. No more oversight, no more councils. You move alone, hunt them, burn them, make the stars afraid of us." The screen went black. For the first time since the war began, Adrian looked around at his crew, not as survivors, but as something more. Chosen, feared, relentless. They began rebuilding Oblivion's edge piece by piece. No dock, no station, just scavenged parts from the wreckage they'd left behind. Ray rewired the AI core herself, fingers burnt and shaking. Ro reprogrammed the nav system by hand. Even the medbay was jury-rigged from leftover Varnex tech, half human, half monster. They didn't make the ship whole again. They made it worse, sharper, meaner, something that didn't belong in peace. Adrian stood in the lower hold one night, staring at a wall of names. Crew lost in the earlier battles. A quiet list of the price paid. He didn't cry, he didn't speak. He just whispered to the dark. "We're not done." The next coordinates came through a cracked screen. An outpost near the Orion Drift had gone silent. A known Varnex corridor. No distress signal. No survivors. He gave the order. "Set course." Ro nodded. "You think this is another trap?" "It's always a trap," Adrian said. "That's why we go first." Oblivion's edge turned, her engines now pulsing with an eerie, soft red light, part human reactor, part stolen alien core. No one knew how long she'd last in this form. She wasn't built to survive. She was built to end things. As she vanished into hyperspace, a ripple ran through the sector, quiet but unmistakable. The Varnex weren't gone, but they had changed. They were hesitating now, rethinking. Because somewhere in the dark, there was a warship, and it had cast a long shadow across the stars. They arrived at the Orion Drift in the dead of night. No stars, no movement, just a graveyard of frozen silence stretching across empty space. The outpost was gone, atomized like it had never existed. Even the station's orbit line had been erased, like the Varnex wanted no trace left behind. No bodies, no signals, just the void, quiet and cruel. Ray scanned the black from her station. "There's nothing left, not even radiation." Adrian leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "That's the point. They want us blind." "Or baited," Ro added. "This isn't an attack. It's a message." Adrian stared at the drift, the weight of it pressing against the hull like a whisper from something ancient. Then the screen flashed. Movement. One contact. Not Varnex, not human. Something else. "Unknown vessel approaching," Ray said, fingers flying across what was left of the console. "Non-Varnex signature, but organic. Same biomatrix. Could be a mutation." Adrian stood. "Put it on screen." The image flickered, then sharpened. The ship, if it could be called that, looked like a shell torn from the back of some prehistoric creature. Its surface was mottled with bone and metal, and it drifted toward them with slow, deliberate purpose. It wasn't massive, it wasn't armed, it wasn't even fast, but it felt wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. Adrian's gut twisted. "What the hell are we looking at?" The answer came in the form of a transmission, not words, not sound, just sensation, a wave of nausea, pain, memories that weren't theirs, screams, fire, the feeling of being consumed from the inside. Ray clutched her head. "It's in our minds. It's not a ship," Adrian muttered. "It's a carrier, a messenger." Then, a voice. Deep, inhuman, yet terrifyingly clear. "You were not meant to fight. You were meant to kneel." The crew froze. Adrian straightened. Too late for that. He ordered full weapons online, what little they had left. "Target that thing. Fire everything." The guns lit up. Plasma bolts tore into the drifting bio shell, but nothing happened. No explosion. No resistance. It let itself be hit. Ray blinked. That was too easy. The ship cracked open. From inside, something floated out. Not a weapon, not even a creature, a seed, dark, pulsing, alive. It moved toward them like it knew them, like it had waited. "Intercept it," Adrian shouted. Don't let it touch the hull. But it was too fast. The seed struck the bow of Oblivion's edge and fused. Alarms screamed. The lights went red. The AI reactivated with a shriek. Foreign entity detected. Infection protocol breached. Hull integrity collapsing. Ro spun the ship, trying to shake it off, but it clung like a leech. Tunnels of dark matter spread across the hull, burrowing in. The ship groaned, living steel meeting something even worse. And through it all, the voice returned. You were made to break. We will rewrite you. Adrian's hand hovered over the manual core detonation, the last failsafe. Ray saw it. You can't. I can, he growled, and I will. We're not letting this thing turn Edge into whatever that was. Then something strange happened. The infected systems didn't shut down. They changed, rewrote themselves. The AI flickered, then stabilized. Its voice returned, calmer, colder. Mutation accepted. Integration complete. Ray stared at her screen. The ship, it's absorbing the infection. No, Adrian said slowly. It's using it. The red glow across the interior faded to black. The engine roared back online, louder. The hull sealed itself, stronger. A new pulse rippled through the core. The ship wasn't dying. It was evolving. Half human, half alien, all vengeance. Adrian sat in the command chair, slow and steady. What's our firepower? Ray scanned the readouts, jaw slack. Tripled. Every system reinforced. The AI's rewriting protocols in real time. We're stronger. A pause. Then the AI spoke again. New threat signature located. Varnic Central Node. 13 light years. Shall I set course? Adrian didn't blink. Yes, he said. Let's finish this. Oblivion's edge turned. Her new hull gleamed black as oblivion. And behind her the Varneks, once predators, watched the dark and began to run.